hello everybody, I hope you're going well. Today I'm just going to tell you the news that I just gathered from Chess.com and from the King's Crush on Chess. Magnus Carlsen's not going to defend his world title, so it is pretty sad, I would like to say, but I can understand it. He's playing chess since always. I think you're not seeing the text correctly. He's not going to defend the world title, his world champion title. So it is pretty sad, but probably he's going to come back in a few months, and then he's going to destroy everybody. But okay, in every case, let's just analyze the game that I just want to show you. This is a game that I just played on Chess, and as always, I'm always doing some free chess lessons. So let's just start. In this lesson, I'm just going to show you how to convert in chess, how to win pawn games, and how to play during the opening and the middle game. So some FIDE Master tips, I guess. So it is pretty funny. I play with the white pieces against someone who is rated 2200, and I play knight f3, knight f6, g3, g6. So this is a pretty standard line from the ready opening with the two fianchettos, so the bishop on b2 and g2. He played g6, castles bishop b7, d4, and d6. So the idea of d4 is just to control some squares in the middle of the board, and you see the knight and the bishop are there on b2 and f3, so it does actually mean that we are playing on the black squares. So right now I just want to put a knight on e5. He played d6, I played c4 in order to control the d5 square, so I'm not letting him going on d5 and have some control over the e5 square. So knight bd7, knight c3, and e5. So right now the idea of e5 is pretty clear and pretty simple. His idea is just to strike back on my d4 square, just because I'm having a pawn in this magical square. So never forget that during the opening you just want to control these squares in order to take more space over your opponent. Because if you can, for example, have a pawn there, a pawn here, even though the bishop is on g2, it is not a problem. The bishop on g2 is only there in order to protect your king. So then you're going to play knight bd2 and you will play f4. And even though you're opening up this bishop, at the same time you are opening up this black king. So trading in order to have the f4, the f file open is a pretty standard and pretty strong idea. So I took on e5, he took back, and queen c2. Right now I just started to think about a pretty strong move, knight takes e5, but it doesn't work right now. The idea is that after you takes there, I'm just taking there, you take on f1, I take there, and the problem is that after queen takes, I'm taking back, I'm just rook down. So the idea of queen c2 is pretty simple. I want to put the rook on d1 and then taking on e5. He played rook e8 in order to protect, but you can still see that the bishop on b7 is not defended. So I played rook fd8 and he played a move queen e7. So right now I think you can already see the tactic, and the only reason why I just won the game is because my opponent made a mistake, because it is impossible to win a game if your opponent is not doing a mistake, or even in like a race. I played knight takes e5. The idea is pretty simple. If you're taking on e5, I'm just taking on d7. I have the bishop there and I'm a pawn up, and my king is pretty safe because I'm going to go back with the bishop. So you have to take my bishop on g2, which he does. I take on d7. Right now, for me, the best move was probably bishop h3, but after knight takes f6, queen takes f6, in order to play on the light squares, but it's not a problem. I'm just going to play rook d2 with the idea of playing knight d5. And if you go on c6 in order to threaten a mate, I would just play knight d5, and everything is protected, because after this trade, I just have too much control, and my next moves are probably f3 in order to control the light squares over my king, and this is just completely winning. And you have to keep in mind that you don't need to be afraid if there are no threat, and if you are afraid of not seeing some possibilities for your opponent, I just have one question to you: why are you playing chess? Like, are you afraid of giving up your queen? I mean, are you afraid of queen takes g6 and that it won't work? Like, you don't need to be afraid for anything. But okay, my opponent I took on d7, he took back, so I just took on g2, and right now I'm just a pawn up. And right now, even though I'm up material, I have to convert, because this e2 pawn is a bit how can I say it? A bit weak. My king is still not so well placed because it is on open diagonal, so I have to find a way to protect my king and to defend all my weaknesses. So he played c6 in order to not let my knight going on d5. This is a pretty good move, I'd like to say, because I cannot go on e4, so it means I cannot trade the bishops, and going there won't really help me because he won't take and give me some opportunities, and the pawn is still weak, so moving the knight in every case is pretty bad. So I played rook d2 in order to defend the pawn and putting the other rook on d1. You see, right now I'm just winning, so I just have to improve all my pieces. He played knight c5 in order to control the e4 square and just having a good positionized knight, and probably he's going to go back on e6, pushing there, and he will try to attack me on the black square, on the light squares over my king. I played rook a d1 and he played rook d8. So rook d8 is a pretty stupid move, I'd like to say. Right now this is actually the reason why understanding what you're doing is the most important thing in chess. You don't need to calculate everything, because calculating too much is always bad. It is always bad. And it doesn't matter if you are if it doesn't matter if you are Magnus Carlsen or just a random FIDE master. If you're calculating too much, you will miss so many easy moves and you will lose too much energy. So rook d8, I just traded everything, and you see I don't need to spend more time and losing more energy for this kind of moves, because the fact that trading some pieces, not every pieces, because if you're playing badly in the pawn game you can lose, but the fact that you can trade some pieces in order to have an easier position is a plan to keep in mind. So I played b4. Probably I was actually looking at knight e4, but knight e4 seems a bit stupid, because after taking there he would just take this, or probably just playing knight g3 first, and right now after I go back he will just go back, so I have to take back, but he's taking there, and right now I just lose my pawn, and this is just a drawish pawn endgame and a queen endgame. So I decided to play b4 in order to put the knight on e4 then. Knight d6, knight e4, we traded, and right now the position is pretty interesting because we have a queen and knight endgame, but I'm a pawn up. So the way to win this kind of position is pretty simple. You have to attack the king on the square on which he's the most vulnerable. You see, the king is on the light squares, so it does actually mean that my knight has to stay over and on the black squares, because if my knight is on the light squares, I won't be able to attack him. If my knight is on the black square, I will attack the light square king. So I played knight b2 in order to come back on f3, queen d6, and knight f3. You see, right now I'm just going to attack the king on the black squares. He played c5, and c5 is a pretty interesting idea. The idea is that after trading, we just traded one more pawn, and I don't want to trade the pawns, because in the end of the day, if we are trading everything and I just have a knight and a pawn against a knight, then he'll just sacrifice this knight for this pawn, and it will just be a draw. So I decided to play b5 in order to keep the queen side closed, and now I'm just trying to improving the king side's position. He played knight e5, and here I just found a pretty clean way to end up the game, because I'm a pawn up. So right now the idea for me is to trade every pieces in order to win the pawn endgame, and trading the knights, just the knights, won't be a good solution for me, because queen endgames, being a pawn up, is not so easy to win and to defend. So actually taking is not so good, and Jan is already saying that that is a mistake. It is still better for me, but this is already a mistake. I found a pretty clean way. I played queen d2. The idea is that I'm just pinning the queen, and if he's taking on f3, I would just take on d6, and he's just losing the queen. So my opponent played queen f6, and queen f6 is a pretty interesting move because it gives me an opportunity. I played the move e3, and the idea of the move e3 is pretty clean. After he takes on f3, which he does, I will just attack the king, and after he moves back, I will just take there, and the fact that I took over so much control on the light squares is actually a reason why the position is completely winning. My king is just safe. And even though he can go on b2 and attack me and so on, like I would just take there, and your queen is on the black squares and my king is on the light squares. So actually it's completely winning. I decided, he decided after queen d7 to give up the game. He played queen e7, so right now this is just a winning pawn endgame, but I still have to convert, because I'm not a queen up, I'm just a pawn up. So it does actually mean that if I'm messing this up, I won't, but if I'm messing this up, I will just be so stupid. It will actually mean that I don't know how to play chess. He played g5. The idea is to control all the squares over my king, and I played e4. If I'm playing h4, it is still fine. Like, I mean, trading is never good because he's letting me go on the f5 square, and if he's defending, I will probably just take stakes and playing e4 again. Pushing one of the pawns is just losing, so he has to trade. And right now I will just push the pawns, close this file, and then pushing the pawn till the king will be blocked on the 8th rank. And I would just go this way and just destroying all the pawns. So I decided to play e4 first. He played king e6, and right now the way to win is pretty simple. Actually, I have to move up the pawns because I'm a pawn up, so I have to use my pieces. Because even though the pawns aren't pieces, like naturally spoken, it is not a piece, but I still have to use it as it was a piece. So I decided to play king e3 in order to push e4, and then trading more pawns, and in order to going up with my plan. He played king e5, so now just f4, we traded, and here we traded again. After rook king f3, it is pretty beautiful because the pawn is blocking the e4 square, the d5 square. The king is blocking on e4, on g4, my pawn is blocking there, so actually he has no way to go down. If he's moving the h pawn, for example, I would just play h5, h4, and it will just be losing. And if he's pushing this pawn, I would just stay back. And this is not quite working because my king is still in this farther, you see? So it is not losing, but I can even use my pawns, but this is just in order to show you. So we played this move, he played h6, h3, h5, h4, this is the same position, king there, this, and this is just completely winning. He moved again with his king. I could actually go further with my pawn, but I just wanted to win pretty cleanly. He made this, f4, king there, and again I'm just blocking every squares with my king and my pawn. He will have to go back, then king e5, this. Again, I'm blocking everything. He goes back, this, and now a7, this, for example. He's forced to play a6. He will just take, and even though he's moving every pieces, I'm just doing a queen, and this, and he can actually already resign. So actually, he already resigned after this move. I can agree with him that this is completely losing. In every case, I hope you enjoyed this small chess lecture. If you're interested in more chess lectures, just go subscribe to the channel and let's go check out my last upload. I did a recap from my last chess tournament in France, so if you're interested, just go subscribe and go check out the videos. See you in a future upload. Take care.